Hello everyone, my name is Christian Casado, and today I will be talking about voting ID laws. Most of us use some kind of ID almost everywhere, every day. We might use it to drive, to cash a check, to get into certain places, or even to prove who we are at work or school. But when it comes to voting, ID rules are not the same in every state. Some states require a photo ID, some allow other forms of identification, and some use different ways to verify a voter's identity. Today I'm going to inform you about voter ID laws in the United States. I'm not here to argue for them or against them. My goal is to explain what voter ID laws are, how they work, and why they are such a debated topic. According to the National Conference of State Legislature, 36 states have laws that either request or require voters to show some form of identification at the polls. The other states, along with Washington, D.C., use other ways to verify voters, such as checking a signature or other personal information. This shows other voters voter ID laws are not one simple rule across the country. They depend on where a person lives. First, it is important to understand that voter ID laws are actually are what they actually are. Voter ID laws are rules that require or request voters to prove their identity before they vote. In some states, that means showing a photo ID, like a license, a state ID card, a military ID, or a passport. In other states, voters may be able to use a non-photo ID, such as a utility bill, a bank statement, a paycheck, or government document with their name and address on it. The main purpose of a voter ID laws is to verify that the person is voting is the same person who is registered to vote. Every state has some way of checking voter identity, but the strictness of the rule is different depending on the states. For example, in some states, a voter cannot cast a regular ballot without showing an accepted ID. In other states, if a voter does not have ID, they may still be eligible to vote by signing a statement or using a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is a ballot that is set aside until election officials can confirm the voter is actually eligible. This means the person still gets a chance to vote, but their ballot may not count right away until their identity or registration is checked. Second, the voter ID laws are different across the United States. This is one reason the topic can be confusing. This is one. There is not one national voter ID law that applies the same way everywhere. Each state makes its own rules. For example, one state may require a current photo ID, while another state may accept a student ID, utility bill, or other document. Some states have what are called strict voter ID laws. This means that if a person does not have the required ID, they may have to take the extra steps after election day for their vote to count. Other states are less strict and may allow voters to confirm their identity in other ways. This matters because a person who moves from one state to another might not know what the voting rules, if the voting rules have changed. Someone who voted in California may have a very different experience from someone who voted in Texas, Georgia, Indiana, New Mexico, and so on. That is why voters are encouraged to check their state rules before election day. Third, the voter ID laws are debated because people see them in different ways. Supporters of the voter ID laws believe they help protect election security. They argue that showing ID is a normal part of everyday life and that it can help prevent voter fraud. They also believe other ID laws can increase trust in election because people may feel more confident that voters are being properly verified. On the other side, critics of strict voter ID laws argue that these laws can make voting harder for some people. Not everyone has easy access to government issued photo ID. This can affect elderly voters, low income voters, students, people with disabilities, people who do not drive, and people who may have trouble getting documents like a birth certificate or proof of address. For example, getting an ID may seem simple to some people, but for others, it can mean taking time off of work, finding transportation, paying fees for documents, or dealing with government offices. Critics argue that even small barriers can discourage people from voting, especially if they already face challenges. So the debate is really about balancing two important goals. One goal is election security, making sure that voters are legitimate and that people trust the process. The other goal is voting process, making sure that the eligible citizens are not prevented from voting because of ID laws and rules. Another important part of the topic is understanding who can vote. In the United States, a person generally must be a U.S. citizen, meet their state's residency rules, be at least 18 years by election day, and be registered by their required registry. The state requires registration. A driver's license or a state ID does not automatically mean someone can vote. For example, some people may have an ID for driving or identification purposes, but still may not be eligible to vote if they are not U.S. citizens. This is why voter ID laws connect to a bigger issue. They are not just about having a card. They are connected to citizenship, registration, state laws, and access to voting process. In conclusion, voter ID laws are rules used to verify a voter's identity, but they are not the same in every state. Some states require photo IDs, some accept non-photo documents, and some use other methods like signature verification. Supporters believe these laws help protect elections and build trust. Critics believe strict ID laws can create barriers for eligible voters. The biggest thing I learned from researching the topic is that voter ID laws are more complicated than they first seem. They are not just about showing identification. They are also about fairness, access, security, and how states try to manage elections. Voting is one of the most important ways people participate in democracy. So understanding the rules before election day is important. Whether someone agrees or disagrees with the voter ID laws, being informed helps voters know what to expect and helps them make sure their voice is heard. And thank you for your time today.